So welcome. This is Publishing Masterclass, and this is a presentation that I put together for you who are on this call right now, you who are here, because this is a presentation I'm only really doing to my own audience. So, if you're here on this call and if you're watching this, then in some shape or form, you've already been in the Lifestyle Entrepreneurs Press community. And for that, I thank you, and I'm glad to have you. And I'm glad to share this presentation. This week I asked, I did a survey and said, what should we focus on for the fourth quarter of this year? And also gave everybody, an opportunity to share, what they'd want to see more of from me and from my community, as well as, what questions and goals you all have. And one of the things that came up was people wanted to learn more about how we publish and about publishing in general. So in response to that, I put this presentation together and I'm sharing it with all of you. So this is Publishing Masterclass. We're going to go through the spectrum of publishing options that you have available to you, talk about how we publish, and have some time to answer questions. So, as you know, I'm Jesse Krieger, founder of Lifestyle Entrepreneurs Press, and here's 20 some books or so that we've published over the last 3 years, and almost all of them have hit #1 in at least one category when releasing them through Amazon. And as the publishing company has grown up, now we have national distribution, and all of our books that are coming out now moving forward are coming out in stores and supported through our distribution. So, many of you that have been in my audience and followed what we've been doing for a while, that we started with, the Amazon publishing and paperback publishing and an audiobook with just-in-time printing. And now we've evolved and are doing larger book launches. And we have got authors on tour right now supporting their books that are out in stores. So excited to share a little bit more about that coming up, but wanted to start by just giving a shout out to some of the authors that we've already worked with here and give you my overarching perspective, which is really that books have the power to change lives. And, if you think about it, you could probably think of a handful of books that have made a large impact in your life. And I'll share a quick story from myself, and some of you may have heard this, but it's true, and it's important. Back when I was like 13 years old or so, I wanted to get this new Guns N' Roses album that came out, and I asked my dad for some money to buy the album, being 13 years old, not really having a job or anything, and he said that he'd pay me $20 to read Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. And it was a really smart move on his part, because as I read it, I picked up a couple great mindsets and a great philosophy, even if I didn't remember everything at 13. And I got the record, right? I got the album I wanted, but more so, it was the beginning of and really a love of books and learning and reading, and a belief that books have the power to change lives that I can trace back to around this time. But so if books have the power to change lives, they are a transformational vehicle. How about a book as a product, a book as something that is sold for money? And when you look at it like that, your book should be your hook, because, a book has a value skew where the price, let's say $10 or $20, is way lower than the potential value that book contains. You could read a book and change your life, right? But as the book author or as the self-publisher or through a publisher, that book sale doesn't count for a whole lot. But our whole view and my whole perspective on publishing is that your book needs to be great and stand on its own, but it should also be a hook and cast a wide net that, brings your ideal clients to you, lets people self-select that they want to work more with you. And this was very much my experience. Here I am with the first version of Lifestyle Entrepreneur coming out in Malaysia and Singapore and Southeast Asia. And I knew from the start I wanted to use the book to build a business helping people start location-independent businesses, online businesses that help support a lifestyle of travel and freedom and opportunity. And so when my book came out, initially I was traveling around the region, doing book talks in Asia, selling books, ultimately became the #2 business bestseller, and got an opportunity to speak and share with a lot of people and sell a few thousand books. And that ultimately positioned me to get a second publishing deal in the US and the rest of the world. And if we just fast forward through a lot of learning lessons in rewriting and releasing that book, and then really getting under the hood to figure out what it takes to do good book marketing, eventually that book as well hit a number of notable positions, like #1 personal success book on Amazon, #1 happiness book, #2 business and money book on Amazon, and so on and so forth. So after spending a couple years as an author, working with 2 different publishing companies, figuring out a lot about book marketing through trial and error, I got some initial success and actually started building what became a 6-figure business around lifestyle entrepreneur, and helping people start businesses of their own. But then I had an author friend of mine who I featured in my book, and he had written a book about Airbnb hosting and was doing this for, renting out his own apartment and traveling the world for months at a time. And so we collaborated, and I helped him get his book done. And then we put the same strategies into place and had a lot of success with that too. Hit #1 travel book on Amazon, #1 real estate investment book. And at that point I realized, maybe I have figured some things out with books and book marketing. And that was what set me down the path of building Lifestyle Entrepreneurs Press. And Lifestyle Entrepreneurs Press now, we've got about 40 authors signed. We've got authors from maybe 7 or 8 different countries, and we sell books all over the world, online, and now in stores in North America, and moving into Europe and the UK. So that's all been within the last 4 years or so, and that's what's resulted in the catalog that we have. And the approach that I've always taken to publishing is the hybrid approach. And as we get into the different styles, the different ways that you can pursue your own publishing for your book, then you'll see where our approach fits, and I'll share more about that. So when I think of publishing, it's really a spectrum. And if you think of on one end of the spectrum is self-publishing, where you basically do all the work, keep most of the reward, and don't work with a publisher or anybody else. At the other end of the spectrum is traditional publishing with one of the big publishers. And in the middle is hybrid, right? And so for self-publishing, many of you may be familiar with Amazon and that platform, and they really do give you all the tools that you need to self-publish your book in all formats. I mean, through KDP, which is Kindle Direct Publishing, you can do your Kindle edition. Through Create Space, which Amazon owns, you can publish your paperback. And through ACX, which is what powers Audible, both are owned by Amazon as well, you can publish the audio edition of your book. And in so doing, you can self-publish a book that has just-in-time printing capability, meaning you don't have to print inventory, you don't need books in a warehouse to start selling, and focus more on the marketing side. But what really happens, I think, with self-publishing is a couple things. Is one, you need to learn a lot of skills that are pretty unrelated to writing and sharing your message or getting your stories out there. So you've got to either learn how to hire and manage people to do things like cover design or interior layout and formatting, and editing and illustrations, or you have to learn to do these things yourself. And in either case, you're spending time and energy on a new endeavor, right? And I think self-published authors are sort of at a disadvantage because you're trying to learn to do a whole bunch of things while you're bringing your book to market that other publishing companies do all day, every day, right? So are you really going to be able to discern a great looking book cover? Do you know what goes into book cover design? Do you know how to do interior layout and formatting and have a pleasant reading experience for your readers? You know, how are you going to get your book edited? These are all questions that need to be answered in the self-publishing process. And now, just to be fair, I have a lot of friends and know a lot of people that have self-published multiple books and done very well. I think they would all tell you that the first one was the most difficult. And so you should just be aware of that as you go down that path. And, you know, in a self-publishing sense, the emphasis on marketing is just as large as if you work with a publisher, but you don't have any other support. So you got to put together your marketing plan, your strategy, and execute on it. Essentially, self-publishing very much is doing pretty much everything yourself. So the tools are available and they are useful and they are good. And if you go down this route, there's resources like Upwork and 99 Designs, which I'll share a few links in here for everybody that's on the call. So first, there's KDP, which is the Kindle Direct Publishing, right? And then there's CreateSpace.com for paperback, and then there's ACX Exchange, which is acx.com for audiobook. And then for hiring editors and other people like this, you know, I recommend Upwork.com. And for book cover design, you know, I recommend 99designs.com, where you can really run a design contest and, you know, see a bunch of different designs that ultimately lead to your book cover. So I shared a bunch of resources into the chat thread for that. And now let's go to the other end of the spectrum and look at, you know, what does traditional publishing look like? Well, here's sort of a flow chart that leads you down the traditional publishing path. You know, first, you've got to identify what's the right category for your writing. Of course, if you're nonfiction versus fiction, that's apparent, but you really want to get clear on who your audience is and be able to define that, because then you're going to want to find an agent, or you're going to be submitting you know, a book proposal to traditional publishing companies without representation. As a first-time author, it's not very likely that you're going to get interest or get picked up. It's possible, but it's way more of a long shot. So say you've got an agent, and now if you're nonfiction, then you create and submit a book proposal. And so pretty much my beef with traditional publishing is you have to spend so much time and energy on selling people on your idea that, you know, it's a huge distraction from energy that could otherwise be spent writing your book, right? A book proposal, if it's done the way that most traditional publishers want, is like a business plan. You know, it's like 40 or 50 pages. So you've got overview, you've got information about yourself, you've got information about your book, you've got an outline, a sample chapter or two, you've got market research showing who you're targeting and where they are and how you're going to reach them and what the potential readership size is, and, you know, how many books you need to sell to reach a certain percent of your market. Things like this, you know, that takes a lot of work to put together a book proposal. Now, if you do it, then you've probably got a very clear idea on what your book is going to be when you do write it, and that's a positive. But on the other hand, think of how much time and energy it is to write a book proposal, find an agent, submit to publishers, try and get into conversations with publishers, pitch the right people within the publishing company, go through the process. It's really months and months and months before someone essentially is giving you permission in the form of an advance to write your book. Right? So the nice thing about self-publishing is there's nothing in your way. You just write your book and learn what you need to do to put it out there and then focus on marketing it. Traditional publishing, you really get super clear on what your book is going to be about and put together a team and a small army to campaign to publishers to get someone behind you, which you then leads you to writing the book and releasing it, right? So if you're fiction, then it's a little bit different. You really complete your manuscript at that point and then start querying publishers, since with a fiction, it's not the same as nonfiction, where you can describe what it is, who it's for, what you're going to learn, what market you're addressing, what needs you're speaking to. With fiction, you kind of just have to write it and get the story down in order to convey to somebody what your book is all about. So with traditional publishing, there's lots of pre-writing work, right? There's proposals, there's agents, there's process. No, furthermore, you sign over control of your creative work. In almost all traditional publishing deals, you don't actually own all the intellectual property to your book anymore. You've granted it and certain other rights for things like potentially merchandising or movies, or if it turns into a TV show or something else, you quite likely have given up control over some of those decisions. You also give up control over your creative work. Many traditional publishing deals, if not all of them, will include that they have the final say on the book cover, and you don't even have to like it, right? They can just choose a book cover and make other editorial decisions that you don't have a say in. So you get this situation, and I've talked to authors that have been here, where they're super excited about their book, and then a publisher changed a number of things because they think it's going to make it sell more. And now you have the responsibility to market your book, and you've got a publisher telling you to get out and market your book. But what if you don't believe in it as much anymore after they changed it up? So there's a situation there some people don't think about. And giving up 80 to 90% of royalties, that's what it means to have 10 to 20% royalties as an author. It means that 80 to 90% of the sales are going to your publisher. Furthermore, payout times can be 12 months or more, because with traditional publishing, your publisher gets a sense for demand, does a print run, distributes those books to stores, hopes that you market them and sell them so that people actually buy them from stores, and then 6 to 9 months later gets an accounting from the stores on what books were sold, also accepts returns from every book that wasn't sold, and those returns get deducted against the royalty that you get paid, which again is going to be 10 to 20%. So when you add it all up, it's very difficult to make good money from your book in a traditional publishing arrangement. And therefore, you should hope that all that pre-work of getting an agent and pitching and so forth, that you secure in advance, because that quite likely might be the only money you see from the book. And that's true even if you sell up to thousands of copies, because that advance gets recouped against your royalty percentage, right? So, when I hear people saying that they want to get a major publisher like Penguin or Random House or Hachette, you name it, then, I always ask them, or I'm starting to ask people more now. I say, when's the last time you picked up a book and said, oh my God, Hachette is publishing this book? Now I'm definitely going to buy it. See where I'm going with this? People don't make decisions to buy books based on who publishes them. Authors tend to think that having a traditional publisher is going to be the answer to all their problems, but nobody else really cares who publishes your book. In my experience, they care about what they're going to learn, how it's going to help them, or if they're going to be entertained, right? So your book still has to stand on its own merits, even if you have a traditional publisher. So in the middle of this spectrum is hybrid publishing, and that's really where we've built Lifestyle Entrepreneurs Press, in the sense that we have distribution on par with the traditional publisher, but also provide a lot of hands-on services and support, and take a strategic view of your book within the context of your business and brand. And we're going to talk about that in a moment, right? And our approach, all of our publishing has been done through what I call done-for-you publishing and book launch support, right? Done-for-you publishing and book launch is the name of our core offer that we work with authors on wherein we provide months and months of services, support, and we'll look at what all that means as a service. And then when the book launches, switch gears and support you from a marketing perspective. And we have an in-house sales team for foreign rights licensing, meaning every time we have a book come out, we have people at Book Expo and Frankfurt Book Fair trying to sell the book to foreign publishers, right? It's a great revenue stream that many authors don't think about, because if we license your book to 10 other countries, each of those will pay at least $3,000 licensing fee, which we split with the authors, and a royalty on sales, right? So that leads us to royalties. You know, if you do self-publishing, you're going to keep maybe 70% at the top, up to 70% of your sales after you deduct platform fees, like whatever Amazon charges and anywhere else your book is available for sale. With us, our authors keep 50% royalties, and we pay out quarterly. And there's a lot of personal attention and guidance. Every single one of our authors has an in-depth, long-term relationship with both me and over time with people on my team. And you're not a faceless author as you would be in a traditional publishing house as a first-time author. So, you know, when I mentioned the 3 pillars of author success, I want to dive into this because, you know, our view as a publisher and my advice to you as an author is to really keep your eye on each of these and have a plan in place for not only your book, but how your book plays into your business and how your brand, like your personal brand, meaning, you know, how many people, if I Googled your name right now, what am I going to find about it? If I Google your business name, what's out there, right? If I Google your book name, where am I going to see it? And so getting exposure across the internet and media and having, you know, a well thought out presentation for your personal brand is important. So let's look at what each of these consist of. And, you know, in context here, your book, I really think of it's like the primary vehicle for your message. It is the embodiment of, you know, years of experience, stories, strategies, inspiration. If you're writing nonfiction, if you're writing fiction, then it's the result of, you know, perhaps years, if not at least months of writing and story development, character development. And in either case, your book encapsulates it all in an easy to transfer mechanism, right? The book is a great vessel for transmitting human knowledge and stories, perhaps the best. I think it's the best, right? And in this process, your book pre-qualifies your ideal clients. So in the nonfiction space, you know, in a lot of my work, you hear me talk about the different ways that you can have back-end offers for your book. So if you do coaching or have an online training program or run live events or do virtual summits or have group coaching or seminars, whatever it is that comprises your business, people that read your book have a much higher propensity to be like, yeah, you're the person I want to work with, right? Because you literally wrote the book on it. And thereby it positions you as an authority in a very real sense because you literally wrote the book on it, right? Now, if you're in fiction, you've got a few different options for building out the business side, and we'll look at those, right? So in your business, for nonfiction, it's really the continuation of the learning experience, right? If, for example, if you read my book, Lifestyle Entrepreneur, you're going to learn how to design a lifestyle, how to really get clear on what kind of business you want to start, choose the type of business, and actually launch it, right? And I teach all of that. But if people want a continued learning experience, for a few years, I offered a weekend-long business. I called it Business in a Weekend, an online live training. And I did one-on-one coaching where we do a 3-month package. And in that 3 months, I literally help the person launch their business, right? So continuing the learning experience means delivering training or delivering an experience in different ways that complement the book. And these are almost all going to be higher priced offerings compared to the book. I was charging $500 for a weekend training, $3,000 a month for one-on-one coaching. You got to figure, even if I sold thousands of books, which I did, generated thousands of dollars in royalties, 1 month of one client at $3,000 per month, gets close to the total revenue from book sales in a year. And so having back-end offers and focusing on how your business will grow as a result of your book is really where the juice is, because it fulfills on the promise in your book and lets people make it real in their lives to the extent that they're ready to. So you've got a book-powered revenue generator when you get to focus on sharing your message and talking about your book and being part of promotions and being on podcasts and media, focused really on your story and strategies in your book, knowing that as people buy the book, they escalate deeper into your business. So speaking of getting on media and podcasts, this falls into the third pillar, right? Your brand. So having a personal brand that's actually established and out there allows you to get media opportunities by virtue of your book, invitations to speak on stages, different ways to expand your audience and build your platform and ultimately inspire people around the world. And so you can tell how your personal brand is doing by Googling your name and seeing what comes up, right? If you Google Jesse Krieger, there's pages of results of sites that I own, articles that I've published, articles that I've been interviewed in that are on different sites, podcast interviews, maybe virtual summits. I've put so much content out there through so many different platforms that my personal brand is pretty cohesive, right? And you can do that too, and you do it one step at a time. But first, by putting forth the personal brand that you want out there, right? You get to choose how you present yourself to the world, and making that decision is a great way to start inviting opportunities. So these three work in tandem, right? Your book, your business, and your brand are all complementary, right? If you do a brand development exercise like appear on media, then you're probably going to sell more books and ultimately bring people into your business. Conversely, if you write a great book and focus on book marketing, then people are going to learn more about you and your story and generate business opportunities for you. And the same way, getting success in your business and helping your clients get success becomes fuel for more brand development and perhaps case studies for another book, just as an example. So, that's my overview of how I think of the three pillars of author success working in tandem based on your book. And I think now I want to share, in more detail, how we actually work with authors in Lifestyle Entrepreneurs Press. And I'm excited to share this because, I realized from the feedback that many of you here on this call and listening to this provided me, which was that you didn't really know how Lifestyle Entrepreneurs Press worked, how we actually work with authors. So I, of course, have this conversation with people that I'm talking about signing a publishing deal with, but I've never really shared publicly. And this is sort of an internal private presentation anyways. So let's look at how we actually work with authors. Well, it's really a three-phase approach. And, I think the beginning, I call it from words on a page to a beautiful book, right? To a book in your hands. And the main stages here is going from a manuscript to a finished book, like being able to actually print a copy or having a complete publish ready file for your ebook edition. And that process involves editing and proofreading. So when we start with an author, we have an editorial team, and our editors go through and do a comprehensive review of the manuscript, give editorial feedback, find grammar and spelling mistakes, yes, but really compile a summary of suggestions that you can incorporate in doing rewrites and revisions. And then that process goes back and forth until the manuscript is 100% done. Right? And then we do cover design. So, I think this is one of the most exciting parts of the whole process, because as your book cover is coming into focus, coming into shape, it becomes very real, right? You see how this book you've been working on, perhaps in a Word document or Scrivener, is now turning into an actual book. And we do many rounds of cover design revisions, and collaborate with you as well as propose ideas before we decide on the final cover. And I go so far as to say that, I think our book covers look among the best in the biz. And it's something I really focus on because it makes such a big difference. Because if people don't like your book cover, then they're probably not going to see anything else. So we focus on the cover design, and then interior layout, which is really the reading experience. What's the font set? How are the paragraphs set? What's the beginning of each chapter look like? How are quotes, offset? Are we using breakout boxes? Are we using illustrations? All these decisions come into play in the layout process. And the result of that is you've got a completed book that you can send to somebody, hand to somebody, give to somebody to listen to. And that whole process can take 1 to 2 months. And then we move into phase 2, which is what I call the road to launch day. So now that the book is complete and it's basically ready to publish, then it's time to schedule the launch date and start the methodical process of leading up to the book launch, right? So in this stage, really focusing on building your list and building your audience. And that can involve, setting up a landing page to give away sample chapters or to give a complimentary resource, and then have a little funnel set up so that once people sign up to get sample chapters or a resource from you, you invite them into a book launch Facebook group, and now you've got them on your email. So now you're developing the communication with them leading up to the launch. We focus on finding joint venture partners, promotional partners, people that have their own audience that's complementary to your book's topic that would mail and promote for your book launch. Leveraging the power of these relationships and joint venture partners is a big part of launch success. Because think about for a second, if you're doing a linear approach, you're advertising, you're reaching out to friends and family, you're communicating with your audience, then you're selling book after book after book. But if you have a promotional partner, like if I mailed out to 27,000 plus people when your book was launching, then you start making dozens, if not hundreds of sales. And that's really a game changer to be able to get promotional partners for your launch. And so it's worth spending the time months ahead of time setting those relationships into motion. So we also look at some paid traffic strategies and start to do Facebook ads where we're targeting people based on their interests and people that would like your book based on other books and products that they like, and starting to find the audiences out there for you and your book on the internet at large, and getting those ready to run paid traffic on the launch day. And then other creative ideas. Nowadays, we do a pre-launch campaign for every book, and we work with our partners over at Publishizer. And I'll put in the link here. So we do all of our pre-launch campaigns through Publishizer.com. And I can share a bunch of those examples with you a little bit later, or as links under this presentation when we put it on a replay. But long story short, in the pre-launch campaign, you highlight the business development things you're doing. So you can sell coaching clients, you can sell online training programs in terms of a dollar amount and how many books. So you're pre-selling books, and you are ultimately building up interest in your book launch and getting it done. So let me actually share my screen here and just show you an example of one of these pre-launch campaigns so that you get an idea for what we're talking about. All right, so as we're leading up to the launch, here's an example of one of our authors, Casper van der Meulen, who wrote Mind Lift. And you can see over here that on his pre-launch, we pre-sold over 400 books and generated close to $9,500 in pre-sales. And sure, some of that came in through individual book orders, and some of that came in through lower price online training course. but we also created an option to do a $250 1-hour coaching session. So that was good for $1,000 and 40 books. And then we created a $2,000 package where you get 75 books, and Casper would go and do a whole, corporate event or team building exercise with a group. And then a $3,000 experience, which is his core business of running week-long retreats in exotic destinations, doing mind lift activities, which is pretty intense stuff, but really cool, right? And so just selling one of each of these packages was good for $5,000, or over half of the total pre-launch campaign. And as we're just promoting the book, we're also highlighting the other things that he does and raising awareness for his business, right? So that's those 3 pillars of your book, business, and brand, and how we do creative ideas like pre-launch campaigns on this second phase. So the end of phase 2 is your book launch. And as your book comes out, drive it as far as we can up the bestseller charts, and then shift gears into leveraging the book to build your business and brand. So now those back-end offers become the focus. If you're doing coaching, if you've got a training program, if you do events, now that the book is out, you want to focus on engaging with your readers and giving them the option to go further with you, right? And then putting a strategy into place to drive ongoing book sales. And so, for example, when you do the launch, it's usually a discount price promotion, maybe a 99-cent Kindle for a day, or a discount on your paperback or what have you, in order to sell a lot of units in a short amount of time. But the long game is having a strategy to sell books at full price ongoing. And so there's a number of ways to do that. And we put at least one of them into place after the book is launched for all the authors that we publish. And then the media opportunities, right? If there's one thing a book is really great at over time, it's one of the best reasons to get an interview, to be interviewed on a show, whether that's a podcast, a virtual summit, a radio, a TV. I've done them all, and they all help sell books. And you can do them too when you use your book as a media tool, and we do a campaign to get you booked on a bunch of the different shows that focus on your topic. And trust me, no matter how risque or obscure you think your topic may be, there's at least thousands of people out there that have that exact interest. And in many cases, tens, hundreds of thousands, or millions. And so media is the way to get in front of more and more of your total potential audience, and how to sell books ongoing and really fulfill the overall promise, which is, being positioned as a best-selling author with a business that's built off of that. All right, so that's the process that we go through with every author that we work with. And that process is what I call our done-for-you publishing and book launch. Right, so just sort of walked you through, and ultimately this presentation is to really be informative both on your options to go in terms of self-publishing, traditional or hybrid, and then to highlight our approach here at Lifestyle Entrepreneurs Press, and to open up the opportunity for you to ask questions about that and to apply for a publishing consultation. I mean, if you want to be considered to publish with Lifestyle Entrepreneurs Press, or if you believe that we're the right publisher and I'm the right person to help you achieve success with your book and to strategize on your business and brand, then you're somebody I want to talk to one-on-one. And to do that, I've got an option here for you to answer a few questions, fill out a brief questionnaire, and then we can chat on a publishing consultation. So you can see the link on the screen, and I'll share into the chat now. The publishing consult is available at bit.ly/publishing consult. And I put the link in there. And if you're watching this later on a replay, I'll have these links underneath the video. But this is the next step if you want to move towards working together and publishing together. And so I'm also going to share our brochure, part of which I shared with you here. And this is our Done For You Publishing brochure. Has a little more background info on the company and a little bit more on the Done For You Publishing, and even gets into some of the pricing and terms. And the final thing I want to share here is, even if you don't think you're ready to go the full 9 yards and publish, which is a months and months long process of us working on your book and moving you towards launch, and then the ongoing process of the author-publisher relationship, which extends for years. And in the best case, it's to both of our mutual advantage. So maybe you're not ready to go that route just yet. I'm sharing here the author to entrepreneur experience, which is a comprehensive author training program I've created that really teaches our whole publishing process that we've talked here in detail with tons of examples and exercises. So it teaches you how to self-publish in the best way possible by following our process. And in that sense, it's really what we do for all of our authors that work with us in the Done For You publishing. So that's another option that you can explore to get support moving towards publishing your book. And I'm going to pull up on the screen actually our catalog and take a look at some of the books that we've got out and coming out, and start to open this up for any questions and see what everybody here on the line thinks about this presentation and what questions you may have around publishing. So I'll just scroll through and talk about some of our books here as you think about any questions you may have. And if you have questions, put them into the chat. And so here's our front list titles, our forthcoming books. And we've got coming out next month, The Concussion Repair Manual. This is by Dr. Dan Engel, who, if that name sounds familiar, it's because he was featured in Tim Ferriss's latest book, Tools of Titans. And he's really created the definitive book for anybody that's had a concussion. He works with people in the NFL and UFC and contact sports. And it's a great book that's starting to get a lot of demand that we're publishing and distributing. Then we also have a book called I Dare You, on getting out of emotionally abusive relationships. And this coincides with National Domestic Violence Awareness Month in October. And Carol Ann Marshall has a great book that she's written here that we are releasing in the next month. And then we've also got So You Want to Start a Business, which is a pretty comprehensive guide on many of the considerations in starting many kinds of business, and really answers about what to do to get that ball rolling and rolling faster and faster. And then we've got another fiction book coming out, The Color Game, sort of like a science fiction fantasy, Alice in Wonderland meets Star Trek with a spiritual bent. And that's coming out in November by Margarita Crystal Lotus. And Margarita might actually be with us on this call. So there's a shout out for your book. Check it out. It's in our catalog. And then we've also got Rough Diamond coming out. Nicole Yershin, the author here, was the head of Ogilvy Innovation Labs for 10 years and did a ton of innovation work with many huge companies around the world. Has got a great book subtitled Turning Disruption into Advantage in Business and Life. More books we've got coming out this year. The last one will be All the Way to Heaven by Andrew Shaw, who writes under the name Anu, which is really a way to discover your life path and have a grasp of spirituality in the process. So he's written a book leveraging the universal laws and his own extensive experience as a teacher and a spiritual guide of sorts. And, that's our fall publishing schedule, right? Then into next year, we've already got books scheduled through the spring of 2018. And, I just would share that that's the time frame to think about if you want to go through publishing and having your book distributed. We're looking 6 months or so out in advance of when we've got the cover design, about the book information, and are ready to schedule that release date. So you can see we've got our spring catalog pretty nailed down too. And so here is, before I shift into some of the books that we've already published, it looks like we got a question coming in. Let me just switch back over here for a moment. And it looks like Margie's saying, if we did one book with you on done for you service, would you still expect to take a % of other classes and courses and things offered related to the book? No. And so this is an important point that you bring up here, Margie, which is, my view as a publisher, and that my core job is a book publisher, is that we're advising you on how to use your book as a business development tool, but we don't have any financial interest in your other business, right? We do have a financial interest in your book, and therefore are your partner for your book's success. But you use that book to sign up clients, people to attend classes, trainings, events, you name it. That's all you, right? And that's really one of the big values, I think, in our done for you publishing, is that it's a lot of strategic support, a lot of business development support. And that justifies the time and expense, to work with us in that capacity. But the ROI that you get is realized over time through your business, even as we're focusing on launching your book and getting that into as many people's hands as possible. So further question being, what if we have done the cover and a few other things, but still want done for you? Would we get a financial break? Well, the answer is yes, provided that you've got a great cover and you've done the level and quality of work that, we're going to put our name behind as a publisher. So, I just evaluate those things on a case-by-case basis. In some senses, people come into ask a similar question, like they think that they've got everything in place, but then our editorial team looks at it, or we look at the cover design and we improve it so much that, everybody's much happier with the end result. So I'm happy to evaluate it and happy to, learn more about your book and see what we could do. And great. So let me just shift back over here, look at a few more books, and then we'll wrap this up. So excited that we've published what I consider two of the most defining books on plant medicine by Javier Regueiro, both of them, Ayahuasca, Soul Medicine of the Amazon Jungle, and San Pedro, Huachuma, Opening the Pathways of the Heart. And Javier's on book tour right now. He's on a 2-month book tour. He was in Los Angeles. We hosted him in Vegas last week. Had about 40-some people out, which was great. And selling books, traveling, and getting the word out. And really exciting and inspiring to see somebody as esteemed as himself getting a great response and to be a publishing partner. Earlier this year, we published our first fiction book, The Phoenix Projects, which is based on true events about sex trafficking in America, but set in a fictionalized action thriller. And really great reviews on this book, over 100 reviews so far. And Katie, a very promising author for the future, as this is a series. And many other books, an art-related book, Overcoming Adversity Through Art, A Beautiful Evolution by my dear friend Annie Kim, Healing with Love, the updated expanded edition from Dr. Leonard Laskow, Drug of Choice by Mark Van Stratum, the inspiring true story of the one-armed criminal who mastered love and made millions. An amazing story, and one of my favorite book covers. And this is one of those books where people, say that they were just going to read a chapter or two and then read the whole thing in one sitting. That's the most common feedback we get on this book. Then Eloise Jones, The Writer's Block Myth, A Guide to Get Past Stuck and Experience Lasting Creative Freedom, being well received by writers and people in the author and publishing space. And all the way back to the first book we published this year, Real Passion Revolution, 10 Secret Ingredients for Healed, Healthy, Happy Relationships. And so that's a little tour there. I'll just scroll back through quickly. But everything we've published this year, the books that we've got coming up next spring, and the books that we've still got coming out this fall. And wow, you know, when I look at it all, it's quite a lot of books, and we've been busy, we've been growing. Lifestyle Entrepreneurs Press has grown about 60% year over year since 2016. I think we're gonna grow close to double next year. And it's all because of working with incredibly inspiring and driven authors like yourselves. I imagine everybody that's still watching and listening at this point falls into the category of a driven author with goals and ambitions to go all the way, right? So that's what's building our company, is helping you build yours and get your book done, published, and out into the world in a really big way. So if you're interested in talking, I'm interested in learning more about your book, you can go to this link here that will ask you a few questions, and then we can schedule a publishing consultation. And, you know, I have other resources available, such as the Author to Entrepreneur Experience, if you want to get comprehensive training, but aren't necessarily ready to do done-for-you publishing. So thanks for joining this presentation. I hope this has been helpful and informative, and I appreciate you being in my audience, and I hope that you've had a great experience learning from me and through what we've done through Lifestyle Entrepreneurs Press. And I look forward to speaking to you soon, or seeing you somewhere online or offline. And I guess this should be the final thing I'd mention is please do come join me at Bestseller Summit Live in Los Angeles this October 27 to 29 in LA. It's our annual event, and you can meet a lot of our authors and meet a lot of authors in general, and hope to see you there. So thanks, talk to you soon.